Ladies and gentlemen, can I ask you something? Have you ever loved somebody so deeply that when they hurt you, it felt like they didn't just break your heart, they broke your confidence, your peace, your identity? Have you ever sat alone at night replaying conversations in your head, wondering what you could have done differently, wondering why someone who promised to protect your heart became the very person who wounded it? And maybe right now, you are carrying pain so heavy that some mornings you wake up tired before the day even begins. Maybe he lied. Maybe he left. Maybe he ignored your worth like it meant nothing. Maybe he made you feel invisible after making you feel special. And now a part of you wants answers. A part of you wants closure. A part of you wants him to finally understand the damage he caused. But let me tell you something that might change the way you see your pain forever. The greatest comeback after heartbreak is not revenge. The greatest comeback is transformation. The greatest power move a woman can make is to rise so high, become so peaceful, become so valuable, become so confident that the same man who hurt her cannot understand how she became stronger without him. Oh yes, ladies and gentlemen, this message is for every woman who has cried silently, every woman who has doubted herself after betrayal, every woman who forgot her own value because somebody failed to recognize it. Because today we are talking about what happens when he hurts you. And instead of breaking, you rise like a queen and confuse him. Now let me explain something about pain that most people don't understand. Pain changes people, but the question is, what direction will it change you? Some people let heartbreak make them bitter. Some people let rejection make them desperate. Some people spend months, even years, chasing explanations from people who never planned on giving them closure. But a queen understands something different. A queen understands that pain can either destroy you or introduce you to a stronger version of yourself. See, when somebody hurts you, your first instinct is often emotional reaction. You want to call him, text him, explain yourself, make him feel guilty, make him understand what he lost. But let me ask you this. Why are you trying to convince somebody to value something they already had access to? Why are you trying to explain your worth to someone who had the privilege of experiencing your love and still mishandled it? Listen carefully. The right people don't need to be convinced of your value. And the wrong people, no amount of explaining will suddenly make them appreciate what they never respected in the first place. You know what confuses a man more than anger? Silence with growth. Oh yes, let's talk about it. Because many women think the way to make him regret hurting you is emotional revenge, posting things to make him jealous, sending long messages, trying to prove something. But let me tell you what truly creates confusion in a man's mind. It is when he expected you to break, but instead you elevated. When he thought losing him would destroy you, but instead you became stronger. When he expected sadness, but saw peace. When he expected begging, but witnessed boundaries. See, most people are prepared for emotional reactions. What they are not prepared for is emotional maturity. They are not prepared for someone who says, "You hurt me, yes, but you will not define me." That right there, that is queen energy. And let me say something some of you desperately need to hear tonight. Stop shrinking yourself because somebody failed to see your greatness. Stop questioning your beauty because one person failed to appreciate it. Stop believing rejection means you are not enough. Sometimes rejection is not proof of your lack of value. Sometimes rejection is protection. Sometimes God removes people because they were distractions disguised as blessings. Sometimes heartbreak is the painful beginning of self-discovery. Think about this. What if the pain you hate right now is actually preparing you for the woman you're becoming? What if this heartbreak is teaching you standards? What if this disappointment is forcing you to love yourself deeper? What if losing him is the very thing that leads you back to yourself? Now, ladies, let me tell you something powerful. Men notice energy. Oh, yes, they do. They notice desperation, they notice sadness, they notice chaos, but they also notice peace. And there is something incredibly unsettling to a man who hurt you when he sees that you stopped chasing validation and started chasing growth. Imagine this. He checks on you expecting sadness, expecting emotional post, expecting weakness, but instead, he sees confidence. He sees ambition. He sees self-respect. He sees happiness. Suddenly, confusion begins to grow in his mind. Wait a minute. Why does she look stronger now? Why does she seem happier? Why doesn't she need me anymore? You know why? Because pain introduced you to your power. Here is the truth nobody tells women enough. Healing is attractive. Confidence is magnetic. Peace is powerful. And self-respect changes everything. When you stop begging for attention, people notice. When you stop chasing people who don't choose you, people notice. When you start protecting your energy, protecting your standards, protecting your peace, people notice. And the funny thing about life is this. The moment you stop needing validation from somebody who hurt you is often the exact moment they begin noticing your absence. But hear me carefully. Don't rise to be noticed. Rise because you finally remembered who you are. See, there comes a moment after heartbreak where you must make a decision. You can either stay emotionally attached to pain or emotionally committed to growth. And growth is uncomfortable. Growth means crying but still healing. Growth means hurting but still moving forward. Growth means missing someone while also understanding they are not good for your peace. Growth means saying, I loved you, but I love myself enough not to tolerate disrespect. Ooh, somebody needed to hear that. Because love without respect becomes emotional suffering. Love without consistency becomes confusion. Love without effort becomes exhaustion. And queens do not beg for basic respect. You know what makes a woman unforgettable? It is not beauty alone. Beauty fades. Attention comes and goes. What makes a woman unforgettable is how she carries herself after disappointment. It is dignity. It is grace. It is emotional discipline. It is choosing healing over bitterness. Anybody can fall apart. Anybody can become angry. Anybody can stay stuck in victimhood. But the woman who says, this hurt me deeply, but I refuse to let pain become my identity. Now that woman becomes unstoppable. And maybe somebody listening to me right now feels broken. Maybe you gave everything. Maybe you loved sincerely. Maybe you sacrificed your peace for somebody who barely appreciated your presence. Maybe part of you still misses him, even though he hurt you. Let me tell you something human for a moment. Missing someone does not mean they belong in your future. Loving someone does not automatically mean they deserve access to your heart. You can miss somebody and still move on. You can love somebody and still choose yourself. Because maturity is understanding that chemistry does not equal compatibility. Feelings do not equal healthy love. Let me ask you something important. What would happen if you stopped focusing on who hurt you and started focusing on who you are becoming? What if instead of stalking their life, you rebuilt yours? What if instead of replaying pain, you rebuilt confidence? What if instead of chasing closure, You became the kind of woman who no longer needed it. See, closure is overrated sometimes. Real healing comes when you stop waiting for apologies that may never come and decide to become stronger anyway. And ladies and gentlemen, here's the thing about queens. Queens don't compete. Queens don't beg. Queens don't lower standards just to keep somebody around. A queen understands that loneliness is temporary, but self-betrayal lasts much longer. A queen knows that settling for disrespect because you fear being alone will always cost more than temporary heartbreak. And the moment you understand your value, everything changes. Because here's the secret nobody tells you. The ultimate confusion for someone who hurt you is not seeing you miserable. No, it is seeing you evolve into someone stronger, calmer, wiser, happier, and completely out of reach emotionally. That confuses people. That makes them question things. That makes them wonder what happened. But by then, you are no longer the woman waiting to be chosen. You became the woman choosing herself. And the journey to becoming her starts with one painful but powerful decision: accepting that what hurt you cannot continue to define you. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something about heartbreak that most people never realize until much later. Sometimes the person who hurt you becomes the very reason you finally meet your strongest self. I know that sounds strange. I know when you are crying at night, replaying memories, wondering why things changed, the last thing you want to hear is that pain might actually have a purpose. But stay with me for a moment, because some of the strongest women in this world were not born confident. They were rebuilt through disappointment. They were rebuilt through betrayal. They were rebuilt through moments where they had every reason to quit on themselves, but somehow found the strength to keep going. See, when he hurts you, something dangerous can happen if you are not careful. You can begin making his actions a reflection of your worth. Oh yes. Suddenly, you start asking painful questions. Was I not enough? Did I love too hard? Was I too emotional, too available, too kind? And before you know it, you are standing in front of a mirror criticizing pieces of yourself that never needed fixing in the first place. Let me tell you something clearly tonight. Somebody mistreating you is not proof that you are hard to love. Sometimes it is proof they lack the maturity to handle real love. Everybody is not equipped to value loyalty. Everybody is not prepared for genuine hearts. Some people only recognize value after losing it. But listen carefully. Your healing cannot depend on somebody finally realizing your worth. Because if you wait for validation from the person who hurt you, you give them emotional control over your future. A queen learns something powerful. She learns to stop asking, why didn't he choose me? And starts asking, why was I willing to settle for less than I deserved? Ooh, that question changes everything. Because healing begins when accountability enters the room. Not blame, accountability. And accountability sounds like this. Yes, he hurt me. Yes, I ignored red flags. Yes, I accepted behavior I should have never tolerated. But now I know better. That right there is growth. Growth is painful because it forces honesty. Growth means admitting you stayed too long. Growth means admitting loneliness made you compromise standards. Growth means admitting sometimes we mistake attention for love. But hear me carefully. Learning the lesson does not mean judging yourself forever. It means growing wiser. Now let's talk about something difficult. One of the hardest things after heartbreak is resisting the urge to prove your value to the person who hurt you. Oh, come on now. We've all been there. You want them to regret it. You want them to wake up one morning and suddenly realize they lost somebody amazing. You imagine them calling, texting, explaining themselves, apologizing. And while there is nothing wrong with wanting accountability, let me ask you something. What happens if that moment never comes? What happens if they never apologize? What happens if they never admit they were wrong? Are you going to stay emotionally frozen, waiting for somebody else to hand you permission to heal? No, ma'am, no. Because a queen understands this truth. Healing delayed by waiting is still suffering. Sometimes closure is not a conversation. Sometimes closure is acceptance. Acceptance that not everybody who enters your life is meant to stay. Acceptance that some people arrive to teach lessons, not build futures. Acceptance that someone hurting you says more about their emotional limitations than your worth. And once you understand that, peace begins to return. Let me tell you what truly confuses somebody who hurt you. It is not when you cry publicly. It is not when you chase answers. It is not when you constantly remind them what they did wrong. What confuses them is when they realize you stop centering your life around their absence. When they see you laughing again, smiling again, building again, thriving again. See, people expect heartbreak to destroy people permanently. They expect emotional dependence. But when somebody sees the person they underestimated becoming stronger without them, it creates questions they cannot ignore. And here is where many women get it wrong. They think becoming stronger means pretending they never cared. No, strength is not coldness. Strength is honesty. Strength is saying, yes, this hurt me deeply. Strength is crying and still choosing healing. Strength is admitting heartbreak broke parts of you while still believing you can rebuild. Because healing is not pretending pain doesn't exist. Healing is refusing to stay trapped inside it. Can I tell you something powerful? Your glow up is not just physical. Oh yes, ladies and gentlemen. Society loves talking about external glow ups, hair changes, makeup, new clothes, fitness. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with improving your appearance. But the real queen transformation happens internally. The woman who learns emotional discipline, dangerous. The woman who stops over-explaining herself, powerful. The woman who no longer tolerates inconsistency, unstoppable. The woman who learns peace is more valuable than temporary attention, oh, now she becomes rare. Because let me explain something about emotional power. The moment you stop chasing people who hurt you, your energy changes, your posture changes, your confidence changes. You stop begging to be understood. You stop trying to convince people to love you correctly. You stop forcing connections that exhaust your spirit. Instead, you become selective, intentional, peaceful. And trust me when I tell you this, people notice when a woman starts respecting herself. Now, somebody listening to me tonight might still be holding on to memories, still replaying good moments, still saying, but what if he changes? Listen carefully. People can change, absolutely. Growth is possible. Accountability is possible. But let me ask you something. Are you in love with reality or potential? Because too many women fall in love with who somebody could become while ignoring who they consistently show themselves to be. Potential does not comfort you at night. Potential does not build healthy relationships. Potential without action becomes emotional disappointment. A queen pays attention to patterns, not promises. Anybody can say beautiful words. Anybody can promise forever. Anybody can apologize after causing pain. But consistency, effort, respect, emotional safety, those things reveal character. And if somebody repeatedly shows you carelessness, inconsistency, dishonesty, or disrespect, stop trying to read hidden meaning into obvious behavior. Here's another painful truth. Sometimes people hurt you because they know you will stay. Ooh, that hurts somebody to hear. But think about it. Why would somebody change behavior they believe has no consequences? Why would somebody suddenly respect boundaries that never existed? This is why self-respect matters so much. Boundaries teach people how to treat you. Standards teach people what you will not tolerate. And sometimes silence teaches the loudest lesson of all. See, the old version of you may have chased explanations. The old version of you may have begged for effort. The old version of you may have stayed available to people who kept disappointing you. But the queen version of you, oh, she moves differently. She understands that peace is expensive and not everybody deserves access to it. She understands that protecting her heart is not weakness, it is wisdom. She understands that loving herself deeply is not selfish, it is necessary. And one day, something beautiful begins to happen. You stop checking your phone every 5 minutes. You stop wondering if they miss you. You stop needing their validation. You stop obsessing over who hurt you because your life becomes bigger than your pain. You begin rebuilding confidence. You rediscover hobbies, purpose, faith, goals, joy. Slowly but surely, heartbreak loses power over you. And then comes the moment that surprises so many women. One day, the person who hurt you may come back. Maybe with apologies, maybe with confusion, maybe suddenly realizing your worth. But by then, something inside you has changed. Because healing changed your standards. Growth changed your perspective. Self-respect changed your expectations. And suddenly the question is no longer, will he choose me? The question becomes, does he even deserve access to the woman I fought so hard to become? Ladies and gentlemen, now we have arrived at the part nobody talks about enough, the rebirth. Because healing is not just about surviving heartbreak. Healing is about becoming somebody stronger because of it. And let me tell you something powerful tonight. The woman who rises after pain is often more dangerous than the woman who never experienced pain at all. Why? Because now she understands boundaries. Now she understands standards. Now she understands the price of abandoning herself for somebody who would not protect her heart. See, when heartbreak first happens, everything feels heavy. You wake up thinking about them. You sleep thinking about them. Your peace feels stolen. Your confidence feels shaken. Even ordinary moments become painful because memories show up everywhere. A song reminds you of them. A place reminds you of them. A message notification makes your heart jump for a second. And maybe some of you listening right now are still in that season. Maybe the wound still feels fresh. Maybe the disappointment still feels personal. But hear me carefully. The way you feel right now is not permanent. Pain speaks loudly in the beginning, doesn't it? It convinces you that life will never feel normal again. It whispers lies to you. It tells you nobody will ever love you the same. It tells you maybe this was your last chance. Maybe this was your person. Maybe you lost something irreplaceable. But ladies and gentlemen, pain is emotional, not always truthful. Just because something feels permanent does not mean it is. Hearts recover. Confidence returns. Peace rebuilds.